Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about celibacy. And in my own personal experience, my most intentional and conscious period of celibacy began, maybe unsurprisingly, at the beginning of 2020 when the world shut down. At the end of 2019, I had gotten out of a relationship, had taken a bit of time to kind of collect myself and grieve that. And then I started dating again, and I was pretty excited about finding a new person to bring into my life. However, when it became clear that the world was shutting down, it looked like that might not happen. But initially, I remember this kind of instinctive, almost primordial program getting triggered in me when there was the world was starting to shut down and there was this illness spreading and everyone was kind of wondering, is this the end of the world? Is this a life and death situation? And I noticed, like I said, this primordial thing in me getting triggered, that it was almost like this sense of mortality that stirred up this mating response inside of me. And a part of me was just like possessed by this desire to find a mate. However, that didn't happen. I chose to not kind of follow through on those urges. And I entered into a period of isolation on my own, which turned out to be an extremely positive thing. Because about a week into the intense isolation, everything having shut down, I started working on a book. And very quickly, just days into the writing, I found myself feeling like I was in an altered state. I felt this like creative high that it was something that I experienced for months as I continued the writing process. And very quickly, because I still had that lingering desire to find somebody to be spending my time with, I very quickly realized that the kind of focus I was giving to this creative project, I had kind of struck a vein. I had hit this zone, and the last thing I wanted to do, because it felt so fertile and precious, the last thing I wanted to do was get excited about a woman and completely jump out of this zone that I was in. And I know myself well enough to know how much presence and focus and attention being interested in somebody kind of consumes in me. And so I made a very deliberate choice to hit the pause button on any kind of search for a romantic relationship or sexual experience or anything like that. It was just time to hit the pause button. There was something new in front of me. And the strange thing is, people would ask me, how's your love life? And I would say, it's amazing. I have not dated anybody in ages, but I'm writing this book and I feel like I'm going for walks in the woods every day and I feel like this palpable, melting, glowing feeling in my chest because I'm so in love with my life and with this creative process that I'm in. And I'm swimming in the ocean twice a day and spending time in nature, and I'm hanging out with friends and I'm connecting with them more deeply than I have in years because I hit the pause button on this one way of experiencing and expressing love that in the past I had leaned very heavily on. In fact, in my early 20s, I probably leaned exclusively on romantic or sexual partners as a pathway of experiencing a certain kind of love or bliss or the divine or a variety of terms. And having put the pause button on that, now I was finding this variety of ways of experiencing those feelings in my life. One of them was through creativity. One of them was through connecting with friends and kind of recognizing the amount of love that can be shared in friendships. One of them was spending time in nature, and yeah, like I said, I would regularly be out for a walk in nature and just be feeling these ecstatic, blissful feelings that in my 20s I might have only felt if there was a very special person who I had in my life or who I was fixated on. And what a remarkable thing to remind myself that there's all of these different avenues of experiencing and expressing love. And I gave myself a promise when I first decided to put the pause button on seeking romantic experiences or sexual experiences. I said to myself, when I'm done writing the first draft of this book, then I can start dating again. And by the time I finished writing that first draft, the world had started to open up again. Things weren't totally back to normal, but I was back at work, people were hanging out in groups, and it was very apparent that it would have been the appropriate time to, hit the play button again. But writing a first draft of that book was really just like creating a sketch, and then the real work was coloring it in and editing it and adding, subtracting, refining, polishing. And I knew once I had reached the point where I was going to allow myself to date that there's no way in hell I was going to leave this creative zone yet. I needed to finish that book. I needed to have it out into the world. And then and only then could I consider myself out of this creative zone. So I kept it on pause. That romantic love life, and that was another really wonderful choice because I'm so glad I stayed with it. I followed that through. Now that book is a thing, and I continued to just really. My love life continued to blossom in a multiplicity of areas. Because again, I wasn't letting myself lean into that one area that I had leaned on so heavily. And I don't regret that. I think there were times that it was completely appropriate and really awakening to be in love with somebody and experience love with a woman, and that awakened things in me that changed my life and that I'm so grateful for. And it was just a product of listening to where I was at that told me, I think it's time to focus in a different direction. That made sense for many years, and right now something else feels like it makes sense. And listening to that and pulling back was an incredibly, incredibly wonderfully fruitful thing on so many levels. Just giving myself the space to kind of reset the some of the patterns that I'd had, and giving myself, like I said, the opportunity to experience really profound love in a variety of places. And of course, stepping back into the world of dating and romance and sexuality can be instantly incredibly humbling, because a lot of us can feel like we've really mastered ourselves when we remove ourselves from the stuff that triggers us. And you step back into the lion's den and find out how much you've really grown. So I have no illusions about some kind of achievement of perfection or fixing myself by pulling back. But it certainly was an incredibly fruitful and beautiful thing. And over that period when I would talk to people about where I was at with all of this, I would always give the caveat that I think if somebody becomes a celibate because of ideology or a belief system or something that isn't really connected to listening to themselves, that can be a very, very unhealthy, problematic thing. I think it can really blow up in people's faces when they take this extraordinary force of nature, which is their sexuality, and think they can just kind of shove it away. It's a very powerful thing, and it can blow up in people's faces when they think that they've somehow overcome it or that they can erase it or something, because it's troubling and humbling. So yeah, if it's approached, if celibacy is approached from a place of ideology or moral baggage, I think that can be pretty grim. But if it's a product of listening to what's going on inside and honoring that and being with it, I know that for me, doing that for a season of life can be a really beautiful and healthy thing. Anyhow, that's all I wanted to share today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can let me know. You can comment. You can like this. You can subscribe. You can turn on the notifications so you find out when new episodes come out. And if you're interested in checking out my book, How to Open the Heart, An Incredible Journey into Vulnerability, Empathy, and the Transformation of Consciousness, you'll find information about that in the description. And until next time, I hope that you have a beautiful day.